Endings. The most controversial part of a film or TV show, and in my experience, it either makes or breaks it. Now, I've watched a fair few amount of TV shows in my time, and the ending is probably the hardest thing to do. You're almost always not going to make the masses happy, which is why I always try and give them the benefit of the doubt. But my god, Stephen Knight really dropped the ball here. Now, before you all rush into the comments reminding me how there's still a movie coming out, yes, I know that. But since this is the final season of the show, I'm gonna judge it on that. Personally, I absolutely hate the idea of them making this money grab movie. I know the original plan was to make a season 6 and 7, but if that was disrupted by the death of Helen McCrory and COVID, then they should have just extended the season by adding more episodes. It's midsummer, and with no sign of the production of the movie, we could potentially see the movie airing at 2025 at the absolute earliest. And if you ask me, something tells me they're not going to wrap up all the loose ends in a satisfying manner in a 2-hour movie, which means they'll either milk the series with another follow up film, or try to deliver an ending that would do the show justice in just 120 minutes. And I really hope they don't milk the show dry like other creators have done with The Walking Dead or Prison Break, for example. A great show always knows when to call it quits. But anyway, I'm rambling on a bit. Let's get on to the real reason why Peaky Blinders Season 6 failed as the final series of the franchise. Okay, before we analyse the final season, it's important to take a look at where Season 5 left us at. Now, Season 5 doesn't get much love from the community, but honestly, I thought they did a great job at making it a setup season for Season 6. And that's what it was, building the foundations for Season 6 to be the best in the series. A lot of people didn't enjoy the darker elements of Season 5, but I enjoyed watching Thomas struggling. Not only mentally, but also against his enemies was a breath of fresh air compared to the repetitive nature of the other seasons where Thomas completely outsmarts the antagonists and wins by the end of each season. Thomas losing made the Season 5 finale more impactful than any of the other seasons combined. It not only brought Thomas back down to earth, but also us as the viewers in the most brutal way possible. We now realise that Thomas is not invincible and that he can lose, which raises the stakes of the show. To quickly summarise the ending of Season 5, Thomas, who joined Oswald Mosley's political party in order to take him down since he's a racist fascist, basically the reincarnation of Hitler. The show really tries hard to show us that this guy's bad. Anyways, he plans to assassinate him and take over the party, essentially disposing of the Billy Boys while he's at it. And when that plan fails because somebody informed on him, what we later know to be the IRA, on the assassination, we are left with Thomas' mental insanity at an all-time high, and questions on who snitched on Thomas's ass, aka the Black Cat in Thomas's dream, what Michael and Gina are planning to do to overthrow Thomas, and how he's going to deal with Mosley. There's a lot of setup here for Season 6, and it left the viewers with a lot of speculation and theorising. Like, I was genuinely so intrigued about who the Black Cat was going to be. People saying obviously it was Billy Gray, because he picked up the phone after Finn's dumbass started blabbling the family business to him. And we eventually find out it was him, but the show left us with multiple people it could have been. I won't go into them here, but there's some convincing theories that it could have been Gina, Abraham Gold, Winston Churchill, and even Johnny Dogs. And this pretty much sums this final season up for me. They had so much potential to make this season so great, so much different ideas and plots to play with, and everything was just underwhelming. I'm not saying to make unexpected twists for the sake of it, but come on man, you gotta add a bit of creativity and risk. There's nothing wrong with making Billy Gray the Black Cat, as underwhelming as it was, but when the season refuses to utilise any of the setup from Season 5, it just feels like a waste. Alright, so episode 1. The first scene is amazing. Tommy walks into the yard where it's very misty, which is symbolic as he can't see where he's going. He's lost and has no sense of direction. Grace urges him to kill himself, and he pulls the trigger, but the gun's empty. He falls into the mud and only half of his face has mud. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret this, but I saw it as Tommy's humanity being eroded over the years since the war. By the way, where the fuck did Lizzie come from? It's super misty and she just spawns into the middle of the yard. The IRA let Thomas know that it was them that prevented the assassination and need Mosley alive. They present the bodies of Barney Thompson, Abraham Gold, and Polly Gray. As I said before, Helen McCrory passed away before the filming of Season 6, unfortunately. We don't know how different the season would have played out with her in it, but the fact they kept rinsing her line,
"There will be a war, and one of you will die."
I think she was a major part of this season. Polly handed in her resignation in the season 5 finale, so they really only had one option. Killing her off was the only real play here since it directly controls Michael's motivations for the season. Not only this, but it also raises up the danger of the IRA, until Thomas decides to undermine them anyway. Anyways, Michael blames Thomas for the death of his mother, and then we're hit with a 4-year time jump. And I don't know about you, but this time jump is where things start to take a turn for the worse. It just felt like all that build up from season 5 was thrown out the window, just killing the momentum of the show. Thomas decides that he wants to do business with the USA and sell opium to Jack Nelson. Arthur is back on drugs, and can I just say, that loud telephone rings fucking pissed me off. Like, they made it especially loud and made no one pick it up for dramatic effect. Like, pick up the phone, damn you. I liked Ada's role this season. She actually stepped up and took Polly's role, which I liked. Tommy decides to leave opium in Michael's bag and then snitches on him to the police, which leads to Michael being sent to jail. Thomas meets up with Gina and Gina tells him Uncle Jack has refused the deal. To which Thomas responds that he would do a deal with the East Boston Jews, Jack's rivals, as a way to force his hand. I like how people keep asking him for a drink, like, we get it, he doesn't drink, you don't have to keep rubbing it in our faces.
You haven't touched your drink, Tom.
I now realise that whiskey is just fuel for the loud engines inside your head.
What do you want, whiskey?
Water.
Ruby gets sick and is repeating some gypsy words, seeing some man with green eyes. Thomas flips the fuck out. Like, this guy freaks out and books the first boat back from Canada. Like, this brother's stressed, man. God, give him a break. Before he leaves, he rubs it in Michael's face that Nelson won't be releasing him anytime soon, and he also hints that he's gonna fuck his wife Gina. So far in this war Polly keeps bringing up, you don't really seem to be doing much here, Michael. Apart from telling Thomas to fuck off every now and then. And there ends episode 1. And honestly, this episode wasn't bad at all. Of course, when knowing how the season ends is not the best, to be honest, but as an episode alone, it's the strongest of the season. Alright, episode 2. Again, we start off with, there will be a war and one of you will die. And the voice of Michael talking about how he's gonna get his revenge. Can't wait for this war to start. So we find out that Ruby's alright this whole time. That's weird, but whatever. The doctors even clear her. Thomas continues to have these seizures and hallucinations. Thomas then delivers a speech to the Socialist Party, which I thought was very powerful. He talks about how the common people should raise their voices against the wealthy, as it is them who suffer the cuts in wages and fight their wars, etc. He makes the agreement with the IRA to help make a deal go through with Jack Nelson. I don't know if it's just me, but the power balance between him and the IRA seems to have tipped completely towards Thomas's favour. It doesn't feel like the IRA ever killed Polly at all. Thomas has a conversation with Ada outside the pub that the IRA lady is still inside. Like, he's talking about undermining them while she's still inside the pub. Thomas meets with Alfie and... hold on a minute. How is this guy still alive? He has lung cancer and was shot point blank in the face. But I fucking love Tom Hardy, so I'll gloss over it. Anyway, he convinces Alfie to buy his opium in order to shift the power balance back onto the Jewish side in the United States. We get this weird scene with Michael and Gina.
Every night. Midnight in Boston, 5 a.m. in London. I'll be wide awake in my big, wide bed. And you'll be wide awake in this prison cell. And our souls will come together, and we'll fuck.
Wait, how are they gonna fuck if they're 3,000 miles apart? Oh. Okay then. Every time a female character and Thomas stare at each other for longer than 3 seconds, you immediately know they're gonna fuck. God, it's so boring and predictable, man. We get introduced to Lady Diana, who's Oswald Mosley's mistress, and as you can tell, she's probably just as bad, if not worse than him.
Individually Jews are fine, but as a race they stink.
We then get introduced to another player, Jack Nelson, and Thomas tells him his proposal that he'll inform him on Churchill's strategies to take down fascism and not sell his opium to the Jews in America. In return, he expects Jack to allow Thomas to sell his opium in Boston. I don't know if it's the actor or what, but the character doesn't really grip me in. He just seems a bit hollow, if you know what I mean. The episode ends the same way episode 1 ended, with Ruby being sick again. This time she's coughing blood and referencing a grey man with green eyes. Now, for the life of me, I couldn't tell if she was referencing Thomas himself, Michael, the doctor at the end of the show, or even the soldier Thomas kills in the bunker. Or maybe just a symbol of death overall. It's never explained in the show, so if any of you guys have figured it out, let me know in the comment section. But the episode concludes with Thomas calling Esme, who apparently knows how to deal with this gypsy shit. The Shelby PTSD fight scene was masterfully filmed, but other than that, the episode really stagnated. None of the things left in Season 5 has really been addressed, and we're now being introduced to new antagonists. Michael is still in jail, and every scene with him and Gina together just cringe me the fuck out, man. It's difficult to explain unless you're watching it, but it feels like a chore just to watch their scenes together. And can someone shave off Michael's dumbass mustache? Like, I can't take this man seriously. Okay, episode 3. So we start off with Thomas sending his daughter to the hospital to check up on himself to ensure that he has not contracted tuberculosis. I should also note the dialogue takes a bit of a dip this season.
You should be wearing a mask.
I am.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So he goes out to find Esme in the middle of nowhere in order to ask her to relieve his daughter of this gypsy curse. Ada meets with Gina, Lady Diana, Mosley, and Jack to invite them all to another meeting, which they will talk about business with Thomas Shelby present. Basically a way to shoehorn Ada into the series and give her some screen time. She sends Asaya and Arthur to Liverpool to deal with some people stealing their opium, and then she chats with Lizzie. This is probably the highlight of the episode. We see Lizzie's point of view and the whole situation, seeing how she's struggling with the illness of her daughter and how she has to deal with it all alone since Thomas has fucked off. The scene with Arthur and Stephen Graham's character alone was nicely done, and he delivered a great speech about opium and addiction, but I just can't help myself from disliking Arthur Shelby's character arc. It's super depressing to see that Arthur's character has become so weak. I've kind of grown bored of Arthur becoming a complete idiot. He hasn't grown as a character since Season 1, 15 years ago in the storyline. Now, it's up to interpretation whether Ruby died due to this gypsy curse or not. Most likely it was just Esme trying to exploit him, but it's revealed that Thomas gave this woman this cursed ruby, and that woman gave it to a gypsy queen, who gave it to her child to wear, who died because of it. This gypsy queen then laid a curse on Thomas so that the same thing could happen to him. Even though Thomas warned her about the curse, and he didn't even give it to her directly. And for some reason, she chose to curse his innocent child. Yes, I know it sounds stupid. Thomas comes back to find his daughter died anyway, which to be honest, I found hard to empathize with, since we weren't given much screen time or character development between the two. You might also realize that this episode recap is much smaller than the others, and that's because nothing happened. Thomas goes on a wild goose chase that meant nothing, and we have a little bit of character development from Ada and Arthur. That's about it. The reveal of Ruby's death was well done, but there's so much we need to wrap up. The Black Cat, Finn who's had no mention, the fascists and the Billy Boys, the IRA, and Michael's still in jail jerking off, literally. We start off this episode with the usual funeral scene. Thomas does a speech and then leaves his grieving son and wife mid-funeral to avenge her. Like, damn, this guy's really out here for blood. He machine guns the woman responsible for the curse and a bunch of her gypsy clan. Michael didn't get a pass for blaming Thomas for the death of Polly by the community, but I didn't hear anything about Thomas killing a bunch of gypsies who had nothing to do with the curse, just saying. To watch Thomas Shelby's descent into depression and despair was honestly well done by the show. Like the scene where he breaks down in the forest is made even more impactful by the build-up of this Thomas's arc of past seasons. It's a shame they refused to build up on other aspects of the stories from the past seasons. Esme then introduces us to Tommy's long-lost son. Okay. Let's just keep adding characters to the story then. It's not like we need to resolve any of the other 8 characters in the show. Then this bitch Esme says she'll only give him to Tommy for gold. Like, you stupid bitch, you're in no position to make demands. Did you not just see him massacre a whole gypsy camp? I don't know how Thomas didn't just shoot her in the face right there and then. And then probably my favourite scene in season 6, the cellar scene between Thomas and Arthur. Just two brothers reminiscing on the past. A very well done scene, I have to give it to them. It was nice to see Arthur as an actual human being and not as a coked up attacked dog or an opium addict who can barely stand. I love how in the meeting they were talking about singing an IRA song, and then out of nowhere this bitch Diana starts talking about how she drank coffee with Hitler and made Jews eat grass. Like, what?
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying.
We weren't even on that subject. Jesus Christ, woman. We get it. You really don't like Jews and you're a really, really bad person, but you don't have to shove it down our throats for fuck's sake. And then the IRA lady starts singing anyway. God, this scene is so weird. Thomas just stands there in the darkness and Diana and him stare at each other again. This scene is meant to look like eerie and mysterious, but it just came off as stupid. Get your ass out of the shadows, man. You're not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Okay.
Okay?
Are you?
Absolutely.
There's also a moment where Thomas is asked to prove his loyalty to the cause. I thought he was going to be asked to kill a Jew or send a Jew outside to eat grass. But no. He asked him to do the Nazi Hitler salute saying, "Perish Judah." Damn, that's so convincing, man. Jack and Thomas deal is established, and now Thomas is allowed to sell opium in America after he's proved himself. They also do this stupid camera spinning technique. The cinematography has been flawless this season, but whoever filmed the scene must have been spending some time with Arthur in Chinatown. Thomas catches Gina and Mosley fucking, so he blackmails her to feed him information about Mosley. The episode ends with Thomas's doctor informing him that he has tuberculosis and he's gonna die soon. Now we know the doctor was lying the whole time, but how the fuck did he know Thomas was suffering from seizures, disassociations and hallucinations? Like, what the fuck? They only started happening since he's come back from Canada as well. And why was he even having these seizures in the first place? It's just all too convenient. Some people like to mention it's because of the war, or the one time in season 3 where he cracked his skull. But all this shit happened years ago, man. Honestly, their mental gymnastics these diehard fans like to go through just to defend the show is astonishing sometimes. Anyways, this episode wasn't the worst, but has anything really happened? Fascist plotline has become so vague and boring. They're just meeting. They don't even have a master plan to do anything. There's no threat at all. The show keeps rinsing.
There will be a war, and one of you will die.
Quote over and over again, but even the fucking Cold War had more action than this. The episode was not awful by any means, but man, it's so frustrating watching the episode slowly grind on with very little plot movement. Also, this episode is super depressing. People are used to the highs of the show that aren't being shown this season. I don't mind the darker aspects at all, but that's not what the problem of the show is. The pacing and poor plot development is. And Michael's still in jail, by the way. We don't even get any screen time of him at least plotting in there or something. We're just left to assume he's busting one out to Gina so they can spiritually fuck. Alright, the penultimate episode. The episode starts with Michael escaping jail.
I'm gonna come. Oh.
Finally, the war between Tommy and him can start. No, only joking. That would make sense since there's only 2 episodes left, but no, he's still in there. Finn, you're alive! God, I never thought I'd see you again, man. Thomas then introduces Duke to the rest of the family, and if we're being real here, with less than 2 episodes left, I really couldn't give a shit about him. I don't know what role he has to play in the upcoming movie, but as I already said, I really don't care. I loved how Arthur was acting like the typical funny uncle to Duke. I really enjoyed that scene. Thomas bribes Linda to help Arthur in his road to redemption, and we get a closer look at the dysfunctional marriage that Lizzie and Thomas are going through. You gotta feel for Lizzie, man. She doesn't even know Thomas is trying to kill himself for a second time now. We then move on to the subplot with Finn, Billy Grade and Arthur, where a referee is refusing to be bribed in order to fix the match. And to give credit where credit is due, this is really well done. Arthur forces Billy to strangle the referee with a wire, and it's such a horrific scene to watch, man, because Billy isn't that type of guy. And he knows if he doesn't do it, he'll be killed himself. Honestly, this was some fine acting right there.
You're bloodied now, Billy. You're Bloody now. You're not going to heaven no more.
We finally find out who the Black Cat was, the guy who snitched on Thomas's plan to the IRA, and of course it was Billy Grade. I was really hoping it was a red herring, but whatever. Then Jack Nelson semi-castrates him, telling him to leak information about Thomas to him. God, he's having a rough day, isn't he? We then get some backstory on Duke and how he loves horses and whatever. Like, the show is really trying to make us like him, but
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Thomas finally fucks Linda in order to win over her support. If I also only had 1 year left to live, I'd also fuck the racist Nazi lady, Thomas. Don't worry, I understand. We see more of Thomas's PTSD and visions, and we see more foreshadowing of there will be a war. And knowing the conclusion just pisses me off more and more. And I don't know if it's just me, but other than Thomas, Lizzie also speaks like she wants to be quoted and posted on TikTok for some viral edit. Like, her conversations with Thomas doesn't feel natural, man.
It's like the clock stopped ticking and I'm waiting for the bomb to explode. We're in that quiet minute.
You sound like you're ticking a fucking box and I don't know what's inside the box. Never have you let me in. Even though I know the combination to the safe.
Her and Thomas's lines are written to be quotable rather than actually have something worthwhile saying, or simply saying things in a natural way. In another useless empty meeting, Diana lets it slip that she's fucked Thomas. All this while Lizzie's still in the room. What a fucking bitch, man. And I feel so bad for Lizzie. She's constantly getting fucked over. I'm surprised she's not the one trying to commit suicide. The day's finally come, guys. Michael's finally been released. I repeat, Michael has finally escaped jail.
Whaley has landed several of those inside low kicks.
The episode is definitely stronger than the previous 3. We're finally getting a lot more progression than the previous 4 episodes combined. It's just too little too late, unfortunately. This episode should have been at least the midway point of the series, not the penultimate episode. The final episode. So Lizzie's understandably upset that Thomas decided to fuck that bitch Diana of all people, and now she's left him, taking Tommy's son with her. Another great scene with Thomas and Arthur here. Thomas tells him that he's going to go to Canada and collect the 5 million promised by Jack, and distribute it between the family before killing himself. The emotions expressed by Paul Anderson is really well done here. The acting on the show is pretty impressive. Thomas decides to meet up with Diana to discuss business, but all she wants to do is fuck. Like, it's so jarring. All she talks about is sex and wanting to eradicate Jews. We get it. Thomas must be really good in bed and you're really horny, but your character can't be this one-dimensional, man. They've really butchered Oswald Mosley's character. He's a shadow of himself from season 5, and they've introduced his boring wife that's stolen a lot of runtime from him. I just know it took them 30 takes to get that right. Oswald Mosley unfortunately comes before anything can take place, and tells Tommy after the wedding if he looks at his wife he'll kill him. I don't know if this is supposed to come off as scary, but it's some cuck behaviour, man. Like, is Thomas allowed to fuck her before the wedding then? So Thomas sends Duke and Isaiah to test Finn's commitment to the group by forcing him to kill Billy Grade, since somehow Thomas figured that out off screen. So apparently Charlie knew that he needed the gun to have the first 2 chambers empty. Finn shoots the first 2 empty chambers of the gun at Duke instead of Billy. Duke shoots Billy anyway and expels Finn from the group. This whole scene was so poorly done, and the acting from Finn's character was especially bad. I mean, listen to this.
By order of the Peaky fucking Blinders,
I will come for you. I'll fucking come for you!
Now, I'm really mad.
Oh, scary! Oh, shiver my timbers! Shut up, man!
They needed to flesh out the showdown with more beforehand build-up, because this scene just seems a little forced and doesn't seem right. Like, Duke hasn't even been a Peaky Blinder for longer than an episode, so him kicking out Finn, who's been there since season 1, just doesn't sit right with me. This is as well as Finn betraying the Peaky Blinders. There should have been more scenes of him this season becoming more distant with the Peaky Blinders, and growing close to Billy, to make the betrayal feel more natural. Instead of giving Finn his first appearance after 5 whole episodes, It just felt a bit rushed. My favourite scene of the finale had to be the shootout versus the IRA. This scene was very intense and left me at the edge of my seat. And the way they used the tear gas to lure out the other attackers was smart. My god, the cinematography was top tier, man. Like, I know it's gloomy and misty, so you can't see well, but can you not hear the gunshots? Also, it seemed a bit strange why the IRA lady would come in the first place instead of letting her minions do the dirty work. But I guess they had to move the story along, and I feel like I'm being a little bit nitpicky here. Arthur avenging Polly's death felt rewarding to watch, but man, the IRA lady just didn't hit me as a menacing villain. Whenever she's in a scene with Thomas or the other guys, she's just a deer in the headlights.
What's the deal?
Yeah. What the fuck?
What's
Oh,
up?
yeah. Get that nigga out of here.
Alright, so this war that's been built up and whispered in my ear all season is finally happening. Michael's plan was so stupid, I seriously thought he was joking at first. So his master plan is to blow up Tommy with a bomb. Like, am I missing something here? You spent the last 6 episodes in a prison cell, and that's the best you could come up with? The reason the show explains why Michael just doesn't shoot him in the face is because his mother told him it wouldn't be a bullet that killed him. First of all, stop the fucking bullshit and just shoot him in the skull. Secondly, if you're so superstitious that you can't just shoot him because your mum told him in a dream that Thomas wouldn't die to a gunshot wound, then fucking stab him. There's 5 of you and 1 of him. They don't know Johnny Dogs is there. I can list 3,000 better ways to kill Thomas than lead him to a car and explode it. The worst part is that the bomb is timed and not remotely detonated. What if Thomas decided to get into the car late because he had to take a piss or his plane was delayed? Whatever. So Thomas decides to get into the car, and then in the most unsuspicious way, Michael is like, whoops, I forgot my cigarettes. Then we have to listen to this shitty music trying to make this whole situation suspenseful. Like, do I look like an idiot? Of course Thomas isn't going to die like this, and it's so drawn out. Like, turn this shit off, man. Then after the explosion, this imbecile leaves his gun on the counter. I know he thinks he's dead, but take the damn gun with you, Christ. Then Thomas says the same "I have no limitation" line he's already said 5,000 times and shoots him in the eye. I'd shoot him again just to make sure. It wouldn't be the first time someone's been shot in the face and survived. No plotting, no layers, no depth. What a shitty way to kill off a shitty character. We get onto the final act and we have this final supper sort of thing with his whole family. He says his farewells to his family and fucks off to the mountains to kill himself.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Just before he's about to off himself, he has this moment with his daughter, and she tells him to light a fire before doing so, and telling him it's not his time to die. And wouldn't you know it, a newspaper half burned on the pile of wood with a picture of his doctor at Mosley's wedding. Now, I'm not gonna lie and say the twist didn't catch me off guard, because it did. It was a nice twist. But I wasn't a fan of the whole vision of his little daughter and the convenience of the newspaper half burned on the pile of wood. It just felt a bit cartoonish. That's just me though. The twist did catch me off guard, so my hands are up there. There's some awesome symbolism of Thomas leaving on a white horse after joining the series on a black one, almost as if he's cleansed his soul. Thomas pulls up on the doctor to kill him, and it's a good thing he was rambling and begging for his life, because just before Thomas shoots him, the 11th hour chimes, which reminds him of the armistice of the war, which started on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, and spares him. And you know what? That concluded the episode, which, to be honest, had pretty much all of the highs of Season 6. It was a good episode, not amazing, but good. But far too little too late in my opinion. I would have also liked to see the effects of Michael's death on Gina. She's obviously hated and whatever, but I think showing her crying and grieving over her dead husband would have made her more empathetic to the viewer. But I guess it wouldn't have worked anyway since they made her cheat on him. The best way I can describe this is with Game of Thrones. For those of you who haven't watched the show, there's a character called Cersei, and without getting into any spoilers, she's a psychopathic, evil, unlikable character. But her one redeemable character trait is that she loves her children. And while she's a murderer and all that, for some parts of the story I found myself rooting for her. And that's because of her human qualities that us as the viewer can relate to, that are shown during the series. Her nurturing, caring characteristics towards her children is something a lot of us can relate to people close to us, like our mothers for example. It makes her character complex is what I'm getting at. Gina's character is as one-dimensional as you can get. She's a cardboard cutout, there's no depth to her. It was one of the strongest episodes this season, but this leads nicely as to why this season failed. Many people are going to tell me in the comment section that they're going to tie up all the loose ends in the movie. The story and characters that have been building for the past 6 seasons should have their storylines completed with some finality within the final season of Peaky Blinders, not in some potential movie that might happen down the road. Imagine if Breaking Bad ended with Walter White retiring and he had to see a separate movie 5 years later to find out what happens to Jesse. El Camino had to build off the ending created by Breaking Bad, not the other way around. It ruins the quality of the show to be dependent on the film. The villains of the show are really black and white this season. And we don't get any insight into what they're planning. No real scheming or plotting by any of them. The Michael storyline was the worst plotline in the history of the show, which is so unfortunate as it's the one with the most potential. They were too upfront with letting us into Michael's head and knowing he was an enemy of Tommy's. They could have written it so that he was more ambiguous and concealed his true intentions. They could have had him making clever moves, but they just let him rot in a jail cell. The IRA lady didn't work at all as an intimidating, fearing villain. Mosley and Uncle Jack and Diana were just reduced to dinner meetings every so often, with no insight on how they planned to achieve their goals or dealing with any conflict. Campbell and Hughes were incredibly written characters because we saw the scheming and had a better understanding of their motivations as villains. Which leads on to my second reason why the season failed. It didn't build off any of the momentum Season 5 had, which was disappointing since they had so much to play with here. Season 5 aired 3 years before Season 6, so many people might not realize this, but watching Season 5 and then Season 6 straight after felt like watching a completely different show, and that just spoils the beautifully worked ending Season 5 left us with. This season really only had 2 episodes of content if you really think about it, and it felt like they stretched it over 6 episodes. And no, it's not because of the lack of violence, it's because the plot is moving super slowly, and being stretched out thinly by adding more plots to the series like Duke and Jack Nelson, which makes the plot very messy. But I was frustrated that they never revealed or even alluded to how Tommy knew every single one of the plans against the family, like Billy being the snitch and sending Johnny Dogs to switch the bombs. It kind of killed what they were building with Thomas for the past 2 seasons. How are we as the viewer supposed to relate to Thomas Shelby without any narrative and no explanation for how he was able to defeat his enemies? We know Thomas is smart, but we don't know why he's smart. We don't know the steps or journey he took to learn the things he learned. This season certainly isn't bad by any means. I rank the show up there with the very best media I've watched, so I always have high expectations for the show. Compared to shows like Vampire Diaries or Riverdale, where I expect the writing to be shit. But when a show like Peaky Blinders performs subpar, it's really disappointing because this show could have easily finished as one of the greats. But for now, I guess we'll have to wait on a movie to deliver a satisfying ending. Yeah, this video took a while to complete, so if you didn't agree with any of the points I made, comment down below and we can have a discussion down there. I know a lot of people like this season, so I'd like to see your points of view of the last season. Like and subscribe, by the way, it really helps me out. You guys have no idea how much the support means to me. My next video won't take this long to come out. Till next time, guys.